I'm Ashton from the Crypto Coin Show, and today on Blockchain Interviews, we have back with us Anish Mohammed, co-founder and CTO of Panther Protocol. Anish, welcome back to the show, and thank you for taking the time.
Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you as well. I think it's a big year for crypto in general and for DeFi and for institutions getting further involved. 2024 was quite the year with the ETF resurgence of Bitcoin inflows. And I feel like they're going to be trickling down into the rest of crypto and realizing the potential it has to disrupt the financial industry. I would love to start off our conversation by, first of all, hearing a little bit about yourself, why you founded Panther Protocol, and what exactly it's doing in aiding the growth for institutional DeFi and for Web3.
So my name is Anish, as you introduced myself. So I've been in crypto for, I think, 12 or 13 years. Crypto, I mean Web3. So I've been involved early a bit in the Bitcoin side, very early, just not doing any programming, just helping the community, helping them with mining and things like that. In 2013, I became an advisor to Ripple. This is the time when Vitalik, apparently, that's what I say. Vitalik was the intern in Ripple. And then while I was still there, I helped the Ethereum team. I became one of the original guys in the Swarm team. I was a reviewer for the orange paper for Ethereum. I left Swarm team like around 2018. In between, I ended up building or helped build a whole bunch of protocols, Boson, Ocean, Pillar, all those protocols, a long list of them. And somewhere along the line, my interest in zero knowledge became something more than an interest. So I had, two sets of zero knowledge startups, and two of them, and Panther happens to be the third one. And the whole idea is around the fact that in public blockchains, all transactions are public. So effectively what that means is if you had an alpha and you were trying to have some advantage of that thing, that completely disappears. And in a sense, having privacy is in many ways key for functioning of society and functioning of finance. So, that ended up resulting in creation of Panther Protocol.
Yeah, that's a great segue to understanding more about blockchain. And yeah, at least with the way that people know Bitcoin, every transaction is public, the ledger is there. We can look up any balance or any transaction in since the inception of Bitcoin. And in TradFi, there's definitely ways to have a competitive advantage as a hedge fund or VC, being able to make positions without everybody looking into the blockchain of the last 15 years. So how does that work in setting up a platform that allows this to happen? The transactions are on the blockchain, but there's ways to trade as an institution that doesn't have all of your records all transparently showing to everybody.
Yeah, the way I would describe it is like it's pretty straightforward. You have a third party, just like where you have for everything else, who does the KYC. So as a user, they come in, they talk to the KYC provider. You can think of it like a KYC provider as like a big room with two doors, a green door, a door with a green light and a door with a red light. Red light is when you fail and green light is when you succeed, right? So essentially, you don't see who's coming in or out. You get a green light and they get an envelope, right? That's how you can think about it. So that means it's like you being sent to a physician to examine. And if you have a disease, you get a red, and if you don't have a disease, you get a green, right? And you have an envelope that's been sealed and given in your hands, right? So you could challenge if somebody says something wrong, you could always challenge them to give you the envelope, and you can open it, and then that's it. Then you know for sure, right? But the assumption is like if you can verify the check on it, the checksum on it, you already know that they haven't lied to you, right? So this is literally how Panther works in a sense. Like you have this third-party service provider who does, KYC for us. It's called Purify, it's based out of Dubai. They then provide at the back of it some ability to correlate between the transaction in terms of the interaction between the user and the KYC provider. And then once they are done with that, they have a derived address that's being provided by Panther Protocol, which then they use to do transactions in the multi-associated pool. So the multi-associated pool, again, I can go back to the room scenario. You have a very large room with lots of people. So anyone in the room could be doing the transaction. Mm-hmm. And the only thing is there are lots of people in the room. Say, assuming even if we know the number of people in the room, if you see somebody leaving, you only know you have a 1 in n, which is n being the number of people. Chances of guessing who that is, right? So this is literally how a multi-associated pool works. And when a Panther protocol connects to a DeFi protocol, everybody in the DeFi protocol sees is Panther protocol doing the transaction, but not the exact, address from which it is coming. And there are instances where you can actually do a swap with a new address as a derived address that's being created by Panther protocol for the given user, but it still doesn't, the link between the user's address and the new address is a Zerno's proof in that sense. So, it's not that easy to actually track it back to the user. So effectively what you can think of is like, A, you have a KYC. B, you have the ability for the transaction of the KYC to be revealed if, say, HMRC or IRS comes to you. Then you have the selective disclosure mechanism, which is you as a user can reveal that these transactions were done by me, right? And then you have a private multi-associated pool that allows you to keep your alpha and interact with the DeFi protocol. And at the same time, because on this side, you clearly are prevented from interacting with any of the people from the off-act list and other things. So that's a simple way. A win-win.
Yeah, no, it sounds amazing for institutions. I feel like people are underestimating this technology, and maybe it's just as a younger person who's starting native DeFi and not really used to the traditional financial world where that kind of stuff is probably standard. People just came in and said, well, this is how it is with Bitcoin and blockchains being all transparent. Do you think people are underestimating the value this has in getting institutions warmed up to DeFi that are used to this kind of stuff in traditional finance?
I mean, I typically describe to people with the example of Renaissance technologies and the return, right? I'm sure people will recognize Simon and Simon's Institute, and the Renaissance technologies, and it is the entity that's the Medallion Fund is the fund. And the Medallion Fund has north of 40% return consistently for the last 20 plus years. That's only available to the employees that are there. And the thing there is when you have a public market, and imagine you were, say, Mr. Elon, and you had a small fight with Mr. Trump, and you have to get some money to do something. And you say, I'm going to sell a bunch of shares of Tesla. The moment he says that, you can absolutely be certain that the price of Tesla is going to tank, right? So you actually want to have a mechanism to do this. And then in the traditional finance markets is what you call a dark pool. So yeah, I mean, you are absolutely right in your kind of assumption. Again, I don't have a crystal ball. So I've been a retail banker and I've done some finance, so I kind of understand things. But that doesn't mean that I know exactly how these people are going to behave. So it is very possible, given they have this requirement of KYC, disclosure, KYT, and need for privacy to do transaction during transaction, not before and after, during transaction. So protocols like Panther should add a lot of value for them because they are very used to doing the same thing.
And you mentioned at the beginning your interest in zero knowledge became more of a reality with this. Can you talk a little bit more and explain how the zero knowledge part fits into that? From what I understand, you're talking about there's a room full of people. It's hard to understand who it is. So in a sense, you don't need to know the knowledge about who it is, just the fact that they're in there and they're approved.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it is. It's like in the layer ones, in any layer one, which is layer one meaning a Bitcoin or Ethereum, there are typically two kinds of mechanisms to keep track of value. One is accounting. So, if I send you $10, my account gets reduced by 10, your account gets increased by 10. The other one is a UTXO model. UTXO model means like I have a UTXO, I have an unspent UTXO, and then, if I spend it, I kind of no longer have it. So this is the model that Bitcoin uses, and kind of privacy protocols usually have the, UTXO model. And a typical UTXO model, the thing is like, once you see it, a lot of detail about it. Mm-hmm. If you actually use zero knowledge proofs, so the thing is like, you can check whether it's been spent or unspent. And if it's not spent, then it could be spent, right? And the contents of it is not known in that sense, and the verification doesn't require the contents. Mm-hmm. So that is the basis of how, privacy protocols use ZKP. And in an extended version, if you were to go back to the room and people in the room kind of question, the simplest way of thinking about zero knowledge proof is like you have this room and this has one door. And, I make a claim that I can escape from this room without a door. So you and I come to the room. I am the prover. You are the verifier. You stand outside the door. You close the door behind me. 5 minutes later, you see me outside. You know that my claim is true. Mm-hmm. And the fact that you don't know how I do it is zero knowledgeness. And the soundness is the fact that, I can only do it if I'm telling you the truth. And the completeness is as long as I tell you the truth, you'll be convinced. So that's what zero knowledge is all about. And that's how zero knowledge is applied to this, multi-associated proofs to achieve what we need to achieve to provide privacy. So mm-hmm. It's a typically a UTXO model, and the UTXO model that uses a zero knowledge proof to actually verify the particular token is unspent.
Mm-hmm. And is the zero knowledge proof technology able to actually integrate into the crypto assets themselves? I've seen this notion of a Z asset, and I'm not sure if that actually changes into a new asset or if that's just a part of the mechanism of being able to trade.
Yeah, it's more a mechanism of keeping track of things. So it's like you can actually, there are multiple ways to do this. So the way I would describe it is like you can, really do the mechanism of wrapping. If that's one way you can think about it. So, you can actually have a wrap BTC. The BTC is, somewhere else, but you have a wrap. So you can almost do the similar thing and then do the shielding and then do transactions in a different layer. Mm-hmm. But, the kind of Z account, while they're, it's only useful for certain things. So if you want to do what we call a Z swap, then the Z account makes sense. Otherwise, Z account doesn't necessarily make that much sense in that sense. Like, it's a functionality that is built to support a lot more than what we currently exposing. Let me put it that way. So, Panther Protocol, in a largest sense of speaking, has a lot more functionality than the current version is exposing it to the users. It can actually be, support a lot more things, and a lot more things require certain behaviors of identity within the protocol, and that's being implemented in the protocol.
And with that notion of the Z assets and creating a compliant platform for DeFi, is there, there's DeFi on so many different blockchains, and those blockchains have different technologies underlying them. Is there a limitation or a chain that works best, or something like, hey, the compliance will only work with Ethereum or other blockchains?
So the way I would say is this is like, in general, if I were to think about it in that sense, it will work for any EVM compatible blockchains, because the way we are implemented Panther Protocol is most of the knowledge is in the smart contract layer. Mm-hmm. So because it's the smart contract layer, you definitely need to be represented on the smart contract layer than anything else. Mm-hmm. So if you have a layer one that actually has, Ethereum-like characteristic with an EVM, those things will be ideal candidates for doing Panther Protocol.
Mm-hmm. That's good to know. And in terms of institutions really warming up to this, I feel like obviously having the technology is important, but a lot also wait for regulatory frameworks or green lights, as we saw with the ETF, getting that approved so that people can actually buy in. In terms of compliant DeFi or zero knowledge proofs, in having that coined inside of regulation that comes out, is that something that you think is happening? Are they waiting for it, or does the technology come first and then the regulation gets written?
So my impression, again, I am not a lawyer, I am not a regulator. I'm just an average Joe Block who has been building protocols, right? So my feeling is like they're waiting for the possibilities. So zero knowledge proof is a possibility. They don't have the proof that it exists. They haven't gotten the proof. Zero knowledge proof of existence of zero knowledge proof. The jokes aside, if they want to actually do this, they will have to, wait for stabilization, standardization, and then a bunch of processes and all those things. So I don't think that we have reached a level yet. We are still, a bit further away from standardization. We haven't gotten all the pieces together. So, I suspect either the need for these people or the regulatory requirement would drive this up. So when that happens, the whole floodgates would open up and adoption will happen like that.
Yeah, that makes sense. And building the technology is, it's not something that can be done overnight. I know Panther has been working on this for, almost since the inception of DeFi, understanding in the long term, this is something that could take over the financial market, or institutions that are trading in TradFi are going to need this. Can you talk a little bit about, the journey of building this, the technology underlying? I'm sure it's been a process, and if it's in the testing phase right now, and how that's going.
So we pretty much are done. We have phase 9 kind of done. We already have the audit completed. So we require some legal entity to be in a slightly crypto-friendly jurisdiction, so we can actually do the deployment. So we're waiting for that to be set up. So if my understanding is correct, the paperwork is already there. I think somebody needs to press a button to instantiate the entity, and then this thing has to go across to the other side, and everything else will be done.
That's great. And so in terms of the roadmap for 2025 and keeping up with everything in the industry, what are the next major milestones? Obviously, the entity that you're talking about. Is there anything else to mention in terms of the next steps of growth in making this happen for institutions?
So the thing is, we have a requirement called a zone manager. The zone manager is the entity that has the license, virtual asset service provider license. So you would have, these folks already in the ecosystem, plus, protocols in DeFi that has alpha, plus the regulators who understand this. Then yes, we could possibly jump in and get things done. The tech is pretty much done, right? Mm-hmm. It's just a question of governance and the counterparties in that sense.
Mm-hmm. That's the hard part that you've finished off. So that's exciting to hear. And do you think, in terms of the overall industry, do you think 2025, 2024 was huge for Bitcoin. Do you think there'll be more interest in compliant DeFi and just DeFi in general from TradFi getting interested in how to get further involved in Web3?
I mean, my assumption here is given the change in leadership in the US and the pro-crypto attitude they have been keeping, it's very likely that'll be the case. And, you will have a prolonged but slow but steady, improvement in the ecosystem in, the whole L1s and L2s. Mm-hmm. And, that will propagate up and down the ecosystem. That will result in increase in value of Ethereum, Bitcoin, and a whole bunch of things. That's my assumption. Yeah.
I'm looking forward to seeing how it plays out, especially with this new administration coming in this January, and see how that trickles into all of Web3 and adoption. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yep.
Anish, what's the best way to learn more about these technologies that you've built, about ZK, and follow along with the growth of Panther?
So, you could go to pantherprotocol.org or, panther.org, pantherprotocol.io. Both the places have documentation, and it should guide you with the protocol development so far and what are the latest thing in that sense.
Sounds great. I can leave those links in the show notes below. I'm wishing you and your team all the best in growing compliant DeFi. I'd love to see more institutions involved in crypto and just grow this, because I believe it's the future of finance. I'm looking forward to seeing how it plays out with the growth of Panther Protocol. So thank you so much, Anish, for the insights on the industry, on Panther. I'm wishing you and the team all the best, and I would love to follow up in the near future.
Okay, thank you very much, and have a great evening.